So for those who don't know, I host a room on Clubhouse 3 times a week, and it's entitled, the club is actually called fundingtheglobalgoals.tv. And the room is titled the SDGs, a little less conversation, a lot more action. It's really about acting to address the Sustainable Development Goals and to do so at scale and speed. So systemic action is what we're looking to do. And that's the objective of Transform Global, designed to be ultimately a sustainable innovation and development bank. So what I wanted to do today is interview Saad, who came into the room, I guess over a month ago now. And before we get started, Saad, just tell me the story. So as people may know, Clubhouse so far is been for iPhone only, although pretty recently they've started to introduce Android, so people can connect via Android, although it's not rolled out all over the world. And in certain parts of the world, an iPhone is a very expensive piece of kit, especially in Rwanda. So I was really interested, Saad, how you got your iPhone. And will you just share that story? And then what we'll do is we'll go back a little bit and talk about how you grew up, the environment in which you grew up in, and your kind of journey to this point, and then what your vision is going forward, how you learned what you learned. Yeah, talk about, first of all, your iPhone and your journey onto Clubhouse.
All right, thank you, Steve. So as you mentioned, my name is Saad Gatefire, and the story that I told people when we had our first conversation, it was not the first, but one of among the many conversations we had. It was the story of how I got iPhone, because that people on Clubhouse started using only iPhone, and the way I got actually my iPhone, it's kind of funny, because I have this friend who is in Rwanda for missionary, and we've been together since 2012, and we've been communicating and just being friends. And one time he had an iPhone 6S, and he forgot his iPhone in his pants pocket, and then he put it in a washing machine, and he remembered that his phone was in a washing machine after it was already in a washing machine, and he decided to move on and buy another phone. And when I saw that, I was like, can I have your phone? And then he was like, it's not gonna work anyway, nothing, you're not gonna use it. And I was like, okay, it's okay, I'll just go and try. And then I went in town, they fixed it. I had to buy actually a new battery for it, and then it worked. So that's how I got my iPhone that I'm using right now, that I used to attend Clubhouse like a month ago.
So for me, that story is just, it's ingenuity, and it's also so opportune, because without that, we wouldn't have met. Maybe we would have met further down the line, but as Clubhouse, as the numbers of people increase, you might not have found the room that I host. Who knows? I love this about life, this crazy story. And if you remember, I told you the story about Jacqueline Novogratz, didn't I? And where she wrote this a book called the Blue Sweater, about her experience of growing up in the States, having a very distinctive blue sweater. And then as she grew up as a young woman, this no longer fitted her. So she gave it to the Goodwill. And after a few years, she was actually running in Rwanda. She'd worked as a junior banker, and then wanted to work in development, and was in Rwanda. And when she was out for a run, she saw this young boy wearing her blue sweater, or what she thought was her blue sweater. So she went up to this young boy, the other side of the world from where the sweater was, and looked, and it said her name, Jacqueline Novogratz, in the collar. So for me, your your iPhone experience is very similar to that. And we'll talk about Jacqueline and what she's doing, or what she has done and built with Acumen in a little while. But so maybe what we could do is just go back to the start. And you grew up, you were born a year after the genocide, is what I understand. So would you talk about, the circumstance in which you grew up, your mom, your dad, your family, your siblings, but also the loss and the sort of trauma that you have, experienced, not by living through it, but by living after it. And if you talk about your kind of personal development and your journey to get where you are right now, but if you start at the beginning, that would be great.
All right. So thank you once again. I was born 1 year after genocide of 1994 against Tutsi. I was born November 11th, and everyone knows that it was a horrific moment of our country, and a lot of people died, a lot of people freed, and they live in different parts of the world. And as I came back, my mom had 11 siblings. She had a twin. They had 4 twins in her family, and she was the firstborn. And on her side, she was the only one left in her family. And my dad had 12 siblings, and he was the last one, and he was the only one left with the firstborn in his family. And all of that, on my dad's side, they had a lot of siblings. And after genocide, my dad went to, because he was a teacher at the high school, one of the high school in my neighborhood. So he had the responsibility of taking in all kids. And they get married, not officially married, but it's like getting together. And then that's when I was born. And I grew up in a 24 kid household with my dad, and my dad was not there all the time. So we had to spend time with my stepmom all the time. She was caring and providing. And my mom was actually living nearby me. It was like a 10-minute walk, but she had moved on with another husband, so they were forming a new life. So I had to stay with my dad. But staying with 24 kids, you couldn't get that kind of bond and love that you need to connect with your parents, because 24 kids are a lot to just give time each one by each one. And adding on that, he was not there most of the time.
Do you remember all of their names?
I do remember all the names, and now their names, their wives and husbands.
Oh my goodness,
so,
your brain must be, I'm not going to ask you to do it right now, but one day I'll get you to, tell them in order, age order, from oldest to youngest.
Yeah, definitely, I will. I mean, growing up in that kind of situation, it was just a year after the horrific genocide. People might think that the people who experienced genocide are only people who lived into or through genocide.
Right.
But the first generation, like me, we experienced, I guess, I would say not exact horror, but we experienced the outcome, and which is the worst, I would say, because we had to live with a broken family, being raised with a broken parent, emotionally and family-wise. Because I remember people used to attend Christmas to their grandparents or visit them in the weekends, and I couldn't just ask my mom where's my grandparents, because I knew that as a firstborn, I had responsibility not to take her back into genocide moment. So I had to always just watch myself. What do I say? And it was a very tough situation to grow up in. And since we didn't have any therapists, like place that they can go and talk to people and express their anger, and so everything had to be expressed through the kids they have and they had there. So living like that, I finished high school in tourism and hospitality. When I moved far away from my home to go to study tourism, it was like 120 or 30 kilometers away from home. And I did tourism and hospitality. After that, I got a chance to work on opening a first coffee shop in Musanze region, which is the northern province of Rwanda, as well as backbone.
Just talk about the studies a little bit. So how did you get in to go and study? What was the, so you obviously did pretty well at school, I'm thinking, or how did you get, so with your father being a teacher, was that how you got your schooling, through the school your father taught at, or how did you learn, where did you get, talk about your education a little bit more.
So growing up as son of a teacher, but you could imagine that I had to grow up with an educational kind of mindset. But as we grow, my dad changed up jobs. He went into commodities and the commerce, and he moved from Rwanda to Uganda and Burundi often. So he was not actually there for us. So we kind of lacked that kind of fatherhood, and I mean child and father bond. Right. So I didn't attend a school in order as I should because of him not being there. And there was a time in 2009, because it was all too much for me, I had to flee from my home. And I didn't tell anyone because I didn't know where I was going. I had 5 cents in my pocket, and I freed and went to Kenya, telling no one because I had no place where I was going. I had no idea where I was going. And
how far was
I ended up in Kenya.
How far?
It's 2 hours in a plane, 2 days by bus. And I don't know how many kilometers are in there, but you can just I'll check on internet, but it's pretty far because you have to go across Uganda and then Kenya, Nairobi. And I spent there 3 months.
How did you travel? You hitchhiked, you walked, what did you?
It was a long way. So I had to, these transit good trucks. They usually transport goods.
Right.
And I think I was 14 at that time. So because I was a kid, I always told them I need a lift. And then when they stop, I'll ask neighbors there, people on the street, like, well, how do you call the next city or center? And then I would tell them, just, I'm going home to this place. And they would feel empathy, and they'll just be like, okay, campaign, and then we go. That's how. But I stayed in Uganda for a week. It was a Muslim family that picked me up on the street. I think he was a village leader. He took me to his house, and after 1 week, he died. And then on his funeral, that's when they collected money to give me to go to Nairobi, because I told them I'm heading to Nairobi to see my mom, because I didn't want to go back to my house. And I told them I'm going to see my mom in Nairobi. And on his funeral, they collected the money, and they gave me the money. I went to Kenya.
To Nairobi.
Yeah. I stayed at the border. They call it Busia, in Uganda and Kenya border. And then I stayed there for, I think, a month. It was this man who helped the big truck to clear their papers on the customs. They usually are there like as a middleman. They help to quick up process. He saw me at the border, and then I walked like 20 kilometers from there towards Nairobi, because I didn't have enough money to reach me to Nairobi. And then when he went back home, he passed me out of his house walking, and he recognized me. I was like, I saw this kid, like, where is he going? He called me, and I was like, where are you trying to go? And I was like, Nairobi. Do you know where you're going, how far it is? And I was like, no, but I'm going to see my mom. And then I was like, okay, come stay here. I'll just catch a lift for you. But he understood in his mind it was far, because it was like 12 hours in a bus drive. So he took me in, and I stayed with him that night. I woke up early in the morning. He tried to get a lift on me. It didn't work, and he was like, you just stay with me. I'll make sure you get a lift at some point. And I ended up being there for a month. And then he took me to an immigration, and it was like, this kid is from Rwanda, and he's trying to get his to his mom, who's in Nairobi. Could you get?
Was your mom in Nairobi at this point?
No, she was in Rwanda, but I was so terrified
I
to
thought.
go.
Okay.
To go back home. That's the desperate and the kind of
The thought process.
things that you do that you when you are broken. It doesn't make any sense, because you don't want to go back, and you would rather just disappear. That kind of, that's what was in my heart. So
were you scared on the road and meeting these people?
I was scared to go back home. I was not scared where am I heading, because I didn't know where it was. So I was like, I would rather just go as far as I can, as far as I could be able to just go. And they gave me an immigration officer that took me to Nairobi, and we were just going around Nairobi looking for my mom. After 1 week, they were like, so we can't find your mom. They took me to an embassy of Rwanda, but they were confused, the officers. They were like, so are you going to Rwanda in Angola, or are you going to Rwanda, Kigali? And I was like, I'm going to Kigali. So I was like, Paul Kagame, and then everything was like, oh, Rwanda. So I had to come back home after 3 months. And they were like, where were you? But I didn't want to come back. So after that time, I went to school, finished high school. I think after my ninth grade, I decided that I want to do tourism and travel. So
Did
the
everything
only
get back
place,
to did when you got back, were things better than they were before you left?
no, it wasn't, because I had to, it's like I had to come back to this kind of circle again. It's because I didn't go because I had a good like family, and they're good in their position, but it was the same family that I was going back in. It was a broken family that I was going back in. It was
So we just had a bit of an internet glitch, as is common, as can happen. But we're back now with Sad, and we were talking immediately before about how growing up in that environment, there was a point that literally you were broken, and you had to get away, and you managed one way or another to get to Kenya, to get to Nairobi, but ultimately you were sent back to Rwanda and to your home and to the family that, in a way, where the fractions and the difficulties had caused you to want to leave, but you were then back in it, and it was no easier. It was still the same. And before we restarted, you were just saying, and I asked you the question: was this, recounting this experience difficult? I can imagine it's very difficult. If you maybe just answer that, and then we'll move to the bit that we were talking about your education, because what really what gives me hope in this world is someone who's been through what you've been through, doesn't appear jaded, and getting to know you, you're very positive, and you see how you want to help. But I have to say, it's quite difficult for me hearing how you've grown up, the situation. I can't even remotely comprehend directly, but thank you for sharing it, because I just know it's not easy.
I mean, it's always hard for me to explain if it was easy. I mean, if it was difficult or hard, or because our parents gone through the lowest point of a human being can ever got to do, and when someone goes into or through crazy moments like that, and you're the first seed to grow after that kind of anger, hopelessness, and broken down, to be able to grow normal or seem possible. And we also had to be, we were broken like that kind of way. So growing up like that, it was very difficult, but we had to go through it because it's our history. We have to live it, and the only way was to survive was to just keep moving forward and having to talk about it, because we had this Memorial Week once a year. We got to learn where your grandparents went, where your auntie went.
That term again, what you have once a year, what is the name?
Memorial Week.
Oh, Memorial Week.
Kwibuka. Yeah, we call it Kwibuka. It's just like you get to hear where your grandparents, where your auntie, your uncle are, where they went. So for me, coming back home it was not that, like some people say, to do something expecting different results is a sign of insanity. So I was not going back. I was being brought back to my parents who love me and care about me, but broken. So it's like doing the same thing. The issue was not to leave. The issue was, what can you do about the situation you're in? So
Well, what's interesting,
the school.
sorry, just what's interesting is you had, it wasn't just you, right? You had lots
Yeah.
of siblings or extended family or you know, the people your father had to take in. So I'm guessing they're also looking to you, you know, you know, you might have been looking up to them, but you had to figure it out together. Must have been quite chaotic, as you know, regardless of, you know, your parents' role. It wasn't just you and your parents; it was you and quite a lot of people around.
24 other kids.
Crazy. I mean, I can't. I have one brother. I love him dearly, but oh my goodness, for me, one's enough.
Yeah. 24 siblings, 24 people had to be under one roof in the same household, and just imagine feeding everyone. And it was a very tough moment. But we went through it, and carrying all the anger, all the sadness, unanswered questions, and all brokenness, and it had to be with you everywhere you go. And then, yeah, I had to finish my, after ninth grade, I went to northern part of the country. So I'm from East. I had to go to northern part of the country where you find mountain gorillas. It was kind of good place for me to go for tourism, because it's a backbone of tourism in Rwanda. So I went there for 3 years, finished my high school, and in my last year.
Did you go on your own, or you? How did you get there? How did that work?
It was crazy. Told my parents that I found a school in the northern part of the country, and there was one, I think, of one of my dad's relatives who lived there, and he was like, "Oh, you can go stay with her and finish your school." And I was like, "That sounds good." But the way that our dad, even if he was not there, he raised us, because we were so many, we couldn't ask him anything or everything being provided. And then he taught us how to get our money if we needed anything. So he did not hand us anything. He was like, "Okay, do that. Then you'll get the money to buy even the shoes, or clothes, at early age." And so I went to stay with her. So it was kind of different lifestyle that she had and what we grew up experiencing.
So
And
your
I
dad
end
taught
up,
you to survive on the street, basically, to do whatever you
he
did.
sent me to my aunt. I would say my aunt, but I couldn't. My lifestyle where I grew up match up with her lifestyle. So I was like, I'm gonna leave by myself. I'll survive anyway. It was like kind of, it's like telling you, okay, you want to go there to school, but you have to do this impossible thing to go to that school, or just leave by yourself. So it was kind of these two options, but living yourself is means providing for yourself. So I was like, okay, I tried my best, so I had to move on and just live by myself. And I got part-time job at the coffee shop that was opening in Musanze while I was studying. I remember I would go to school and then come back, change clothes in the bathroom, and then put on like a working uniform, and then just start serving coffee at the coffee shop. Um, for us, how we do, we used to go to school from 7 to 2, and then I'll just run to the coffee shop from 2, do the afternoon shift, and then it keeps circling like that. But that helped me to pay my rent. I remember the my friend, he was the missionary guy. He came to visit me, and he saw that I had a sack of rice, beans, and maize flour. That I was like, I won't get starving with this. So it was a kind of like my food bank that I had stored. Every day he was like, man, you're gonna die from eating rice and beans. And it's my favorite food, but yeah, it was a financially favorite food. So yeah, I had to manage everything by myself from that time on until now. But going to that process, well, I was not by myself. It was always someone had to be, you developed a friend who you talk to and the communities around you. And with that, working at the coffee shop, I got privileged to meet a lot of Western people who I kind of pick up the English from. So that was kind of privilege that I had working at the coffee shop that led.
When did you learn English?
I started learning English from school, but without practicing it, I really didn't speak any. But after I got to connect with this missionary kid that I friend, at any time I could just be with him, it would be my goal and my target to make sure that I speak English. And getting a job at the coffee shop kind of improved everything, and also learn from.
What is your native
everyone.
tongue? So what's the Rwandan dialect or language that you were speaking?
It's called Kinyarwanda.
Kinyarwanda.
It's very difficult language.
Okay.
You can tell from my Kinyarwanda name, the pronunciations and everything. It's not easy to learn. But also, like, Rwanda used to be a French country speaking, and during in my, I think, primary school, they had to switch to English. So also that accent and being switched the language is kind of confused, because the older people in Rwanda speak French and the younger generation speaks English. So it was kind of mixed up languages.
Yeah, interesting.
But I got to pick up English, and since 2019, I started working at the Volcanoes National Park, where I'm currently working right now. And
spell the name of the national park for people, so if they don't know it, just spell it.
Volcanoes.
Volcano.
Yeah, Volcanoes National Park.
Yeah, about volcanoes in Ruengeri, right? Ruengeri.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Volcanoes National Park. So what they do is one of the last home of mountain gorillas, and Rwanda is part of the three countries that is the home of this species. That is Congo, Uganda, and Rwanda. And for Rwanda promoting tourism and this the gorillas being the backbone of tourism in Rwanda, they got a contract with the coffee company in Rwanda to um, provide complimentary cup of drink in the morning for tourists who come to visit the park. So that's when I got a chance to work as a barista.
Now, what's interesting about the coffee company that you work for is it's part of a social enterprise that's all about getting more money into the hands of the growers, you know, and having high quality coffee, not just in Rwanda, but elsewhere. And it's a US organization, isn't it?
Yes.
Partly backed by Bloomberg Philanthropies and a number of other organizations. And although your role is as a barista in the park, in the national park, it's kind of interesting that you, without really knowing the senior team in the States, you're part of what's actually quite an advanced and quite a decent social enterprise that admittedly you're paid a wage for doing what you're doing, just like many people who are serving coffee or other products in a retail environment. But what's happening in the back end is the roasting or the growing, the harvesting, the roasting, you know, and it is interesting that it is an entity that is trying to do what you want to do on a much wider basis. So I think that's fascinating that you're there. What's also really interesting is, you know, and we've talked about this before, your knowledge, your level of knowledge and interest in things like regenerative agriculture and looking at the reasons women might get pushed into work that isn't the kind of work that they want to be doing because they're not earning anywhere near enough in the subsistence kind of incomes that are typical. So maybe you just talk a little bit about that, your sort of journey. And I know one of your goals was to launch an ice cream business in the locality, but you've changed your mind a little bit in terms of what you want to do, partly because of COVID. And we'll talk about the gorillas in a little while. But if you just talk about that sort of your learning experience of where you've still got a great relationship with your mom, which is lovely, and I know you go and visit her, and you sent me some pictures which I'm going to of the environment you grew up in, and I'm going to post them along with this video so people can see, you know, where we're talking about as well as where you work right now. But yeah, just talk about the sort of the point where you got a job and an income, you know, when you were both at the tourism college, but then afterwards, but your mind is very much far ahead of where you are right now. You know, you're serving coffee in a coffee shop, but you want to change Rwanda. That excites the heck out of me. And just talk about that realization and your interest in things like regenerative agriculture. How did this spark for you? What conversations brought this about?
For me, working at with this organization, it's an NGO actually from the US. I got to know farmers and know the story of the coffee that I'm serving. I knew the story, but I didn't resonate with the story that much because I was just kind of the end user to to the customers.
Remind me the name of the coffee company.
It's called Sustainable Growers, but the coffee shop under the Sustainable Growers is called Question Coffee.
Question Coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. But you didn't know that this was like a sophisticated social enterprise. You just thought it was a coffee shop, right?
Yeah, I knew that it was an NGO in Rwanda, but I didn't know it was too much behind the scenes. So working there, I usually, because I wanted my life to not be as just a barista serving people coffee. I wanted to have more meaning in life, because someone asked me, why do you wake up every morning to go to work? And I couldn't really answer the question because I didn't think about it. And from that time, I could ask people who come to visit gorillas, because we got to interact before they got to the briefing and do the actual visit. I would ask them, what do you do for a living? And how do you manage to pay this amount of money and visit and travel?
And to be clear, isn't it $1,500 to go?
Yes, it's just to go to see gorillas, and you have to pay transportation, hotels, and COVID testing these days, different costs. And then a lot of people told me.
So I asked you, what were the gorillas like? And what did you tell me?
I don't know how the gorillas are like. I just know them from people and people's picture and people's excitement after the hike. And I've never seen it. I've never seen a gorilla except the videos. And as a first person to the guests come to at the national park, they're very excited to go to see the gorillas, and the only thing you want to hear is gorillas. And they always ask, how is it like? How is the experience? Because they want to know. And you have to always tell the story from what you've heard before. It's not like personal experience that you could actually tell. So
while we're on this subject, let's just talk about one of the reasons we're doing this, and then we'll go back to answering the question on, how you realize where you want to make a difference. But when I asked you about that, part of the idea jumped into my head. Maybe we put together a GoFundMe to help you go and see the gorillas. And someone asked the question, but do the gorillas want to see, the tourists? And it's actually a good question. I thought about it, and actually, conservation is complex, and it does need foreign income. But obviously, $1,500 is a lot of money. But it turns out that through COVID, there's a program, which is the first time this has existed, isn't it? Where the staff can actually go for a much reduced price. Is that right?
So yeah, actually, the way before, back in the days, it used to be $50. But as Rwanda developed their kind of tourism industry, it went to $1,500. And during the COVID, they decided all Rwandans should go to visit for $200. And I just learned it recently. They give a time frame up to the end of May this month, because summertime is their high season, like a peak season for people to just travel around the continent. Okay. So they have raised it again. Sorry, I didn't know that before.
Okay, so basically,
that's how they arrange.
So basically, we've got a deadline. We've got 9 days, is what you're saying.
Yeah, technically. Okay.
For you to actually, is that for you to pay, or is that for you to go?
You could book before. Maybe if you book now, you can always go in maybe August. It depends. So if today is $200, you can book today and then pay 200 or go in June, July.
Okay.
But like going to the answer of like, yeah, I think it was someone from Clubhouse who asked if the gorillas want to see us. I would encourage him to check out story of Diana Fossey, who came to Rwanda, I think it was 1959 or 62, something like that. And she came to Rwanda when local people used to go poaching in the national park, and they wanted deer, they wanted food to eat. They don't eat gorillas, but they wanted some small animals that live in the mountain, gorillas, because it's a really big jungle. And one of the, they could catch sometimes gorillas because the animal was open, it's in the nature. You don't manage who or what kind of animal that comes to your trap. So she came to Rwanda and then stayed in the mountain gorillas, doing a research about it and trying to teach people to not go poaching in the national park, to leave it aside as a nature and conserve the mountain gorillas. They were, and I think right now it's still, they are endangered animals because they were shrinking from poaching. But these kind of visiting gorillas and going there, conserving them, it's the increase of their numbers. Also, the money from tourism come back, 10% come back to the community to build infrastructure to be able to teach them to not go to do poaching in the national park, to just teach them that this animal live like their habitat. Also, when you leave it, we don't want you to die from hunger. 10% it will come back to build schools, health center for your kids and future generation. So it's not just to go to see gorillas, it's also help conserving them and also help the community around the national park.
So
sorry, I didn't answer him that time.
Yeah, that and that more complete answer is, I think, really important. I said that conservation, has complexity and it can be on the surface, but it's also to say that as I understand it, the guides are absolutely expert and they really make sure that the interaction, human level interaction, is kept to an absolute minimum. And
it's a 7-meter distance. Unless the gorillas decide to walk towards you, you can always go back, but it can just come fast and they just go past you. But the distance is 7-meter distance,
right,
that you were supposed to be in from the gorillas.
Exactly. So it's dealt with sensitively, and this helps conserve, but also do the local community development. So for me, and I've had this discussion with a friend of mine, Vienna von Weyhausen, who's on Clubhouse, but who's so I've known for a number of years, who does anti-poaching activity in South Africa and elsewhere in Africa, a different kind of activity, but using canines to help the rangers. But for sure, it's important to keep these animals alive and to protect nature. And for that, you can try and leave them alone completely, but for sure that is not always the way to help them. So, but anyway, so the point being, what we decided, what I suggested, and I decided, but you were happy with, of course, is what we could do is on Clubhouse, and a number of people have already said that they would support this. So we'd create a GoFundMe campaign, not just to help you go and see the gorillas, but I believe that alone, I think, with who you are that bit of inspiration and real experience, even if it's, a few hours, hiking, I think that would be, really fitting. I think it's also just important to recognize currently you don't earn $200 a month, so it's important to recognize that for you to pay for that, and live as well, it's a lot of money for you, and therefore, it's you can understand why people don't have the opportunity to go, not even at $1,500, but even at $200. So part of the goal is to get this up, and I'll with the urgency, I'll get it up over this weekend, and hopefully by tomorrow, and that means on Sunday morning when I run the room, we can talk about it and get people hopefully contributing and get you to do that. But the goal is basically to raise rather more than $200. The goal, I think, is to raise $1,000 or more, hopefully $1,500, because, as you said, you don't just want to be a barista. So let's talk about that other part of your realization of how you wanted to create change, and what currently you want to do to enable that. I think this is important. And as I've said, there's people I want to reach out to and help you have access, because I think you're super impressive, and I think frankly, you are the future of this country, and for you, to be able to do to work with people who are having an impact, to learn, and then to go on and create your own impact in the areas that you want to, and feel you have to. I think that's really exciting. So my goal would be to help raise enough money so you can go on that next step of your journey, to meet the kind of people you need to meet, and learn the things you need to learn to decide where you're going to create that impact. But talk for a moment about those decisions, and talk about the ice cream, and then your reasoning to get out of the ice cream business and to do something a little bit bigger and more ambitious.
I working as a barista and seeing the first coffee shop that I worked in start in Musanze, which is the current place I'm living in, was kind of first time coffee shop was introduced to this community. And after 1 year, 2 years, I asked myself, why not providing a new product to this community? And I know that they usually see it on the movies or songs. So I had idea of building an ice cream shop, but it ended up having short capital. So I had to build an ice cream truck in Musanze. I had to fabricate it. So I started it November 11th, 2019. So after a few months, then COVID came on and messed up everything. But after that time, we went into a total lockdown in Rwanda for 3 months. And then after that, I didn't have a job back then until recently at the national park, because they kind of stopped my contract. Until recently, I got called, and then they decided to go ahead and give me a job back again. But going back to the national park, seeing how there's no people coming to visit, I started learning through internet, global warming, climate change. I started watching a lot of video, actually Bill Gates video, and I started taking a Bill Gates quiz. It comes on how much of this car industry that produce carbon emission a lot, and that kind of quiz. and just reading much about climate change through his gate notes, um, and trying to see how it's going to impact our whole world. And I stumbled on this report that he made about how countries that live near equator will be suffering a lot of droughts and floods. And I was like, we are just 2 degrees south of equator. That sounds like Rwanda to me, and as a part of other country. And it kind of like made me rethink of how I grew up, and because 3% or even more of Rwandans live from agriculture. And my mom, I grew up just with her going back to when I was a little kid before I went to live with my dad. We used to wake up like 5 a.m. in the morning and take a little, you would call them donuts, just pack them and with cassava, no, with sweet potatoes and sorghum drink. And she went to go maybe walk like 1 hour to her family land that she had from her family because no one left. And we could stay there like all day and come back at night. So it was kind of touching moment to me to be like, if these things happen, what are we gonna do as a country? Like, if 80% of our population lives through agriculture, live by agriculture day by day, and this climate change, we might not be producing a lot of carbon emission. We might not have those big industries, but air has no limit, sky has no limit. While you're burning the US or China might just come through ocean wind and then land into Rwanda. So it made me do a lot of research. I talked to one of head of environmental conservation at the national park, and he explained to me how some of small lakes at the national park are disappearing through droughts. And I talked to people in agriculture. They told me how they had this.
This head of what do you say that the title was? The
environment. He was a head of, I think, environmental research at the national park.
So what did he think of the questions you were asking him?
So he thought it was interesting, and he just kind of gave me a look. Was like, how do you know about this? That kind of look. So, but he was, because I worked there like every day. He was kind of open, kind of friendly way to give me actually data that he's done as a research in the national park. Actually explained it to me that because of climate change, some plants are being established in the national park that resist to that kind of heat and rain. And some of the trees that used to be the gorillas eat, or elephants and buffaloes, might disappear at some point. And the only thing that will happen, animals will have to flee to go to find other place. But that, he told me, that happens very slow by slow. It kind of, the changes happen within 10-year period. And because I was like, if this is happening, what about agriculture sector? Like, what is happening there? Since we grow potatoes and sorghum and maize, like, what happens? I went there. There was one time in 2018 or 17, I don't remember exactly. There were these flying insects that migrated. I don't know the source, but it was coming from Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda just migrating in a very large number, thousands, eating people's crops.
Right.
But it was kind of like it's freeing from like disaster from its own origin. It wasn't like they were moving just to come and take things and go back. It was just like they were running away from something. And rain patterns in Rwanda have already shifted. So he told me like 2020 we didn't have any actual like a summertime dry season. It was kind of like consistency, rain and a little bit sunny, but rain. And I was like, so what, how many of the local farmers actually knows about this? Like how are they gonna be able to have those resistance crops? Because I saw in the US they're trying to develop resistance in soybean. And I'm like, the farmers in the rural areas, how are they going to be able to get to these crops? Can you even grow maybe soybeans in Rwanda? Are people in Rwanda even eat soybeans? Like, how are they going to be able to fight against something they don't know? So that kind of gave me inspiration of thinking wider and be like, what can I do to help this larger community, which is my parents are in that category, my friends' parents, I'm gonna be next farmer, who knows? It's a large number, and it's the future. If changes always could appear within 10-year period, I'm just thinking like, what is gonna be damaged in that time? And the government might do their part, and they will do their part, but it doesn't make all sense to leave it to the government by itself. And Rwanda is a developing country. We are not that developed that we have a science and scientists and labs that are gonna be like, let's focus on this. There's still that kind of gap in there that private sector and NGOs should come in and help. So with the room that you started, that's when I jumped in, and I still don't know a lot in agriculture and climate change. I'm still learning, also trying my best and trying to find a place that I can get more educated about this. But in my knowledge, I felt like I should take a first step and find a way of helping this large community that my parents, age of my parents and my aunties that I didn't grow up having in the family, but they are around like I am, and they are the source of food that we eat on a daily basis.
Sad. Talk about the issue that you told me about, around, women who are often working in agriculture, have to generate incomes in other ways, which they would rather not do. And you also cared about how could you affect that? How could you get more money into the hands of the women and boys and men, and girls, just the getting more into the hands of the rural, working populace, so that they are not vulnerable and getting into situations that none of us want to be in, if we have choice. Talk about that just a little bit.
Trying to help these people. When I was in my school, I went to school with different people, and what kind of kept into my mind, like trying to help these people, like how am I gonna help them? And that's when organization that I'm working for kind of came back to my mind and gave me the whole idea of how I can do it. What they do, they help women to grow coffee because it's women growing coffee, and then they train them, they provide the materials to take care of the coffee, and then buy the harvest from them as to be promised a market. For me, it was like experience that I had and saw in my school that a lot of teenage, they get pregnant while they're in the school, and they have to drop out of school because of the shame, and they can't study with just expecting baby. And often when they go back to their families, or maybe they don't have any family, they are not well received in the families of their own, and they can't just say publicly because that's not right. They have to face humiliation in their families, and when they can't take it, they just tell them we're going to look for a job, and they end up serving in a bar, and they get maybe paid $30 to $40 a month. And if men decide to just give them $20 a night, just sleep with him, then they'd be like, this is much more than I make a month. And they just take another wrong decision because of the situation they are in. Then this man take advantage of them and decide to be like an official prostitute. So I was like, maybe why not focus on these people, these teenage moms who are suffering from this horrific emotional and bad situation that they're in, and provide them an incubation that you can teach them like savings if they had a job, entrepreneurship, kind of to just them like there's a different path in a life you can take, even if this happened is a tragedy, and you can be a responsible and human being and take care of your kid. Because it resonated to me, even if I was not born like that, but I grew up with single dad who's not there most of the time, and staying with my stepmom was not of a choice. So I would have loved to grow up with my parents and just have them there all the time. So I kind of like, on a personal level, it's like you could grow up with a single mom and have a better life instead of just end up in being a prostitute on the street. So with this project that I'm trying to do is trying to focus on teenage moms who don't have any job, and just trying to connect them with agriculture through and the incubation, and working together to grow up their life standard of living, also help their kids with the nutritional and the food and level of poverty, trying to decrease it.
So back in 2012, I was very fortunate to meet someone called Catalina Escobar, who was attending an event, an impact investment event in a place called Lugano in Switzerland, and she grew up in relative privilege in Colombia, but had a tragic occurrence where her young son fell out of a building and died. But when she was in hospital in Cartagena in Colombia, she couldn't believe the number of very young mums who were giving birth without often well, very young and from tough backgrounds. And she
Mhm.
realized that she'd had a tragedy which was just a pure accident, whereas many have grow up with tragedy which is often preventable. And so she created a foundation named after her son called the Wanfei Foundation. Wanfei, Juan Felipe, I think his name was. And this foundation works with young girls in Bogota and Cartagena, and I think they're expanding now elsewhere. And
Mhm.
they both have a very large maternal unit to help these young mums give birth and but hopefully to intervene so this doesn't happen unless it's planned and at the right time. But when it does, she's there for them, and she also or the foundation, helps provide education and job opportunities and really, the respect and dignity that often isn't present, in this environment where they grew up.
Mhm.
But it's really interesting when you look at what you're doing, what you want to do, and
Mhm.
there are successful examples of people who around the world have helped address similar problems,
Mhm.
similar challenges. What's unique right now is that the need to, as you said, tackle, climate and make sure our agriculture and our water systems are resilient,
Mhm.
and but also to tackle the issues that we just talked about. And
Mhm.
uh, there is increasingly joined up thinking, but it's also
Mhm.
hard sometimes to find it. So
Mhm.
what I'm really encouraged by what your understanding, first of all, I got to commend you, is and your desire to learn. You're aware of what's
Mhm.
going on, and your compassion may be born out of what you went through personally and what you've experienced, which
Mhm.
which is really just hard to fathom. uh, um, no one can live your experience. You've lived it, and your parents,
Mhm.
your siblings. But what's so
Mhm.
encouraging is you said earlier something that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, and expecting a different result. The fact that
Mhm.
you know that statement and
Yeah.
reference it is really exciting.
Yeah.
But also, the fact that you really want to make a difference. So
Mhm.
for anyone who's watching this video, I really encourage you to reach out either to me or to SAD, through the links that we'll provide, and that could be because you have a suggestion of an organization that might want to help SAD with his journey. You're able to donate into the GoFundMe campaign, and what we've suggested is that additional money, hopefully we can do it fast enough for you to see the gorillas,
Yeah.
but also that any additional money that you can raise could help you essentially do the research and develop the relationships necessary to take the next stages of your career. And that could
Mhm.
be going and working with an organization in Kigali or a university, or a social enterprise. We talked about Acumen and Jacqueline Novogratz earlier. So
Mhm.
I am going to try and send Jacqueline this link I think I have her email, and maybe Jacqueline, if you're able to watch it, or one of your team could watch it, maybe you could also
Mhm.
reach out and see if there's any way you could help SAD, help the people of Rwanda that I know, Jacqueline, that you care about massively.
Mhm.
Um, but there's other people as well. And
Mhm.
I mentioned in the past that I did meet, Rwanda is very interesting. I think it's one of the countries that's got more women in parliament than any other country on the planet,
That's
and
true.
that is, is very encouraging. I also mentioned, I think, Anthony Farr of um, um, Alan and Gil Gray Philanthropies, who they have expanded, I believe, into Rwanda, and that might be also another useful contact. So Anthony, and Susanna, if you're watching. I also mentioned Susanna Farr is doing something incredible, which is called Gold Enterprises, where they really pioneered something called peer-related education, where people who've had really tough, environments that they've grown up, they become the educators to their peers, and let's face it, the people you can respect are the people who've been where you are and find a route forward. And that's one of the things that they do. They enable and facilitate that. But what's exciting about what Gold Enterprises and Gold Youth does is it also has, while it's got the education side, it's also got the social entrepreneur side. So they own a number of, if I understand correctly, enterprises that are doing good things for the environment, and such as solar installation and maybe light manufacturing and other things. And those enterprises are able to provide jobs for the people who have come out through that educational program, and some of the excess returns, because although it's for profit, it's not for profit for the individuals or for any investors. The profits go back in to the organization to support the education facility. So this is a really neat model. I understand that they're expanding into different places. I don't know whether they're yet in Rwanda, but the point is, I really think you need to be exposed to these kind of people, who you can learn from and learn from the programs that they're developing. But there's other programs as well. I know, there's microfinance organizations in Rwanda. There are entities that Kiva, I believe Kiva provides microloans, so syndicated microloans for entrepreneurs, and there's a number of intermediaries that we talked about in Rwanda. So, but saying this is what you should do isn't what I think I should do. I think you should have, some time to figure it out, and to meet multiple people. And if you can get some experience, rather than try and do it on your own from scratch, while absolutely you could do that, and you would have my support if that was the case. I think, the reality is, if you're able to go and learn from what other people, are doing and have done, and their knowledge and understanding to add to your own, but in your own local context, and then triangulating it with the things you're learning on Clubhouse, and elsewhere, that would be the best way, so that then when you do, either launch something yourself or join another organization, you're doing it from a position of strength. Because let's face it, we don't have time, to reinvent the wheel and to, make mistakes. And mistakes are good, they're learning experiences. But at the same time, this stuff is urgent, and it's really big. And does any part of that scare you? I mean, the scale of the challenges, and being able to do something that can positively address them. And even if you do it, even with helping a few lives or a small area, that's fine. But it seems to me your ambition is a lot larger. But I just wonder whether any part of that scares you.
There's a saying in Kinyarwanda that says, "A man does not fear jungle. Man fears what is met in the jungle." So I'm not really that scared of just helping people. I'm just excited to help them as much as I can. My fear would be to disappoint them, but I don't feel that I would disappoint, because you have all the players, you have all the blessings towards you to be able to think big and make sure that you help them. There was one time I was listening to Dave Ramsey, and he talked about a story. I don't know if you know Dave Ramsey. He's an entrepreneur from the US. He has a podcast.
Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, and he shared a story where he took all his employees to the beach, and then when he was there with I think on a grill, or but it was at the beach. It was a party at the beach, and he realized that he has responsibility of all of these people and their families, because he saw his kids playing with his employees' kids, and he realized that he's no longer just himself. The company is no longer just himself and his company. It's about this community and this generation, these kids who are playing with his kids. So I think for me, I don't think about myself when I'm trying to think about these people. I try to think their life they're living in, the kids, how are they going to grow? Like, what kind of life would they dream of? As what kind of life I dreamed of having. So I'm really excited to be able to provide what I can to make sure that their life and level of poverty, that they can leave that behind and have a better future. So I'm not scared.
Good. And what would success look like to you and to your siblings? What would your siblings and your mum, what would, and your other relatives, what would how would they want to see your life as success? And what would success look like to you?
I think for them as well, they would just like to see me do something bigger than myself as me, because I believe my reason of being is not just me. There's a reason I'm here, and there's a reason I was born after genocide, not before or during, because there's a lot of young people like me who died. And for me, success would be seeing these people live better future than they have right now, because I always intend to look at my life, how I grew up. I would not want anyone to live how I grew up, even if it shaped me into who I am today. And my parents did what they can, but I wouldn't wish anyone to grow up like that or under that. So if they could be able to live with a good school education and good healthy insurance, to be able to access medical services, and then once they have that, and food, eat good and be healthy, then they can just decide what they do in their life once they grow up. But to have a basic need in life that they can. So
I mean, it's a little like Charles 222 on Clubhouse talks about, water, shelter, and food. I think 200 gallons of water, 2,000 calories, and 200 cubic feet or square feet of shelter, being the basic needs. I mean, there's other things as well. We know education, of course, and energy clearly is very important, because that enables education, and it enables people to, it is a time saver in many, many ways. So it's not just food, shelter, and water, but people can kind of self-determine if they get that first rung of the ladder, and then there's multiple follow-on runs. And that's why the world of investment has to change, not just to meet those basic needs, because when you're trapped at that level, you become vulnerable as well. So even, just meeting basic needs is one thing, but what we need to do is turn, this basic need, because often meeting a basic need actually includes destroying the environment, and that could be chopping down wood for the heat, which also gives health problems if you're cooking, using wood inside a dwelling, that gives incredible, tough respiratory problems. So meeting a basic need should be met well, and that's the key. But beyond that, people have aspirations and they have hopes and they have dreams, and for that you need infrastructure and you need investment, and we need, of course, technology, but it's not all about technology. It's about meaningful lives. So this is really meaningful for me to have this discussion with you. It's part of, Transform Global isn't yet funded. If it was, for sure we'd be funding you ourselves rather than doing a GoFundMe. But I think actually it's a good idea to do a GoFundMe anyway, because I think there's lots of people who would want to help you and guide you and help, your dreams, to help the people of Rwanda come true. But you've got personal dreams too. Do you have are you single right now? Do you have a girlfriend, or you're not married, I take it, or do you want children one day? I mean, I know this is a bit personal, but it's good to know.
No, I'm not married.
You don't have to answer, by the way.
Because it just, I'm not, because it's okay, because it always freaks me out to have a kid and not be able to provide the best I can. So there's this level of insecurity financially that I'm dealing with right now that does not allow me to have a kid at this moment. But I love kids, and I would love, I always joke that I would want 20 kids because I like kids. So, but I won't have 20 kids, definitely. But yeah, I'm not married at this moment now.
That's the point, is, for that says what a great person you are, because, to realize that that's a responsibility, and that says a lot to who you are, but equally, that's your ambition, right? It's not just to do good for other people. You've got to provide a life for yourself as well, and so that you can, experience that joy, and the joys of being, what I'm very confident would be a great father, hearing you speak and getting to know you a little bit, and a great partner as well. So yeah, for sure, with Transform, as it emerges, I want to definitely follow your story with funding the globalgoals.tv, that part of what we're doing. And I'm sure we'll be able to partner and help support you. But initially, I just want to get you on the journey a little bit more. So so I'm going to now edit this and get it up, and hopefully we can launch this GoFundMe on Sunday when we go on our room. In fact, in a few minutes, I'm going to go into the room that Teddy Flacheva is running on sustainability news. So I'm going to go in that, and I'm going to mention that we've spoken. And if you have time, I'd love you to come in and talk about what we've just done and what we intend to do. It's been so illuminating. It's been amazing to we've spoken many times, but today it's the first time we've done the Zoom call. And I love Clubhouse, but to be able to see someone is amazing. One day I hope to have the privilege and the chance to come and visit Rwanda, or maybe one day for you to come to London or wherever I am in the world. But for now,
be my guest sometime.
Oh my goodness, I really can't wait. But for now, let me see what else I can do and who I can think of and who I can reach out to. And I would encourage anyone else to get in touch and do the same. And I'll edit this down so it's a little more, in some bite-sized chunks, but also so people can watch the whole video, and we'll put it on the YouTube channel and see how we can support you. But the question I asked you didn't answer. I'm just curious, what would your mum think of all of this and what you're doing? I mean, I know you were with her just last week, but your mum's still traumatized. I know that, and other members of your family. But yeah, what would your mum think of who you are becoming and have become as a person?
My mom is a pretty strong woman. She tried to stay humble in any way she can, and I wanted her to join me to do this video, and but she didn't feel confident enough to join and be in the video. But she's really looking forward to see it coming true and see me helping other people. I think she would be proud of me if I do decide. I mean, if it comes to reality, and I know it will, she will be so proud of me. Even now, just thinking about other people and trying to help. So she's really happy that I'm doing it, and I hope one day she'll join me to do maybe the video about the whole story and journey about our life.
When you think of what she went through, and I know your dad is not in Rwanda right now, and he's got another life, but I'm sure your dad would also be incredibly proud, and others in your family. But I think many of your country, your fellow countrymen and women, would be very, very encouraging of you, and as you are of them. So this has been great. So on a positive note, and this has all been very, very positive, but to leave it, tell me one thing that makes you laugh and that makes you, about what you see in culture. Is there any music that you like? Tell me something that you enjoy for you.
My name is Saad. It's a Middle Eastern name, but also means happy. I'm a very happy person, and I do love different music. I do love football. I do. Do
you support a
like
team?
Oh, Chelsea.
Oh, you're a Chelsea.
I do like Chelsea.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Chelsea, and Barcelona in Catalonia. So I love movies. When I was a kid, actually, I thought I was gonna be in a movie one time, but I still have a hope, so I don't give up.
May well be.
So, yeah, I mean, I tried to
this is a movie. What are you talking about? This is a movie. Come on. Okay.
Yeah. This is a movie. So I try to stay happy because part of the reason that I went far in 2019 when I was 14, it was overwhelming and loneliness and sadness, like everything came to me, and I just decided to leave. So and from that time and after, I think I realized that the only thing I need to do is just make myself happy in every way and try to be positive rather than being on the negative way, and just stay in this kind of moment. I try to be happy in every phase and every daily life that I live on. So yeah, I'm a happy person, as my name
As your name
says.
says.
Yeah.
Listen, and I'm a happy person right now. In fact, I'm a happy person, regardless of what happens. And this journey for me, it's not been, it's been privileged by any standards, but it's also been a huge struggle,
Yeah.
on a level that it's been a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. And yeah, one day I'll share a story with you about a time when someone accused me of not being happy. And I thought, I don't understand that, because regardless of what I've gone through, I've smiled every day. I've laughed a lot of the time at myself or the world around me. I love films too. I'm not so much as a football fan, although a few years ago I had a share of a career advice company, a company that did occupational psychology, and we did some work with Watford Football Club. So I spent about 12 weeks. Although I don't even have a degree. I'm not a trained psychologist, but and we made that very clear. But as all the psychologists we had were women, and the football team was men, Graham Simpson, the chairman of Watford at this time, and Ray Lewington, who was the manager, who went on to be, he was a former Chelsea player, but he went on to be the assistant manager for England. I basically spent about 12 weeks with going to Hampton Court, where Ray lived, driving with him to the training centre. It's called London Colney, right next to where Arsenal training centre is, but it's not the Arsenal centre. And spending time with the players and with Ray, and doing so in the away games and also in the home games, traveling with them, and learning about them as people, and giving them my ideas, ideas that I'd learned about behavioral psychology, about goal setting, and having role models, and having the energy where the team can actually collaborate and collaborate properly and dynamically. And anyway, the reason they asked us to do that is because they were on a losing streak, after having a former Chelsea manager come in and spend an awful lot of money, but not spend it well. So essentially what happened is we helped stop them losing and start winning, and rather than be relegated, they finished in the top half of the league table at the time. So I did it. I didn't charge them up front. They paid me a bonus for doing, but it was just an amazing experience. So even though I don't know much about football, it was just a remarkable experience of seeing teams, if they can come together, what they can achieve. But management is an individual thing. One size doesn't fit all. So I was really privileged back then. But yeah, so I'm privileged right now. Thank you so much for today. And yeah, maybe one day we'll get you to, we'll go to a Chelsea match together. That would be fun. Not that I've ever been to a football.
That would be nice.
Anyway, or a football match since all those years ago. Anyway, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go into the room, as I mentioned, the sustainability news. I'll get this up, and I'll see you hopefully Sunday morning. You'll be able to come into the room on Sunday, yes?
Definitely, I will.
Great. All right. Well, listen,
I'll be coming to the room.
A great rest of the day. Thank you so much to your friend for providing this location and the beautiful elephant behind you.
So thank you. I'm very humbled and thankful to be talking to you and coming to the room for the first time. It's been an inspirational journey to me, this the networking journey, like meeting a lot of people, and it reminded me of, I don't remember who said it. Someone said the the amount of money you make is not what you receive. It's about how many handshakes you make. So
it, I think I know. It's not the amount of it's not the amount of hands you shake, it's the amount of hearts you touch. Was that the statement?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, because it also, that could also be the other interpretation, because it was like, it doesn't matter how much money you want or you need to do your project or your dreams. It's about how many hands you shake to network with people, because all you need, someone has it.
Right.
So
is that what Dave? I found the Ramsey show, Dave Ramsey. So that
oh yeah.
But it sounds like something that, looking at it, that he would talk about, or others. But you're right. The answer to many of our, many of our what we give. So I don't know where I heard this, but I say it a lot. So I don't know who I should be attributing it. Is the best way to get is to give. But if you give the expectation of what you get, something doesn't feel right. You have to give, and then the universe is a way of giving back. So if you want to meet other people's needs, the needs of the needs of ourselves can be met at the same time. But sometimes it's a little bit of a delay. So not always instantly we give and get. Sometimes it's that delay. But the way that you maximize your chances is giving a lot, and networking, and being positive, and also networking and spending time with people who you want to be like. I think it's a really important thing, that if you are, if you're spending time with people who are living lives that you don't want to live, you're going to become like them, regardless of whether you want to or not. It just, we copy. So, to rise our lives, we have to spend time with people who we aspire to be, or be like, or be with. And on that note, let's call it a day for today. We'll get this uploaded, maybe in a couple of parts, because it's a little long, but I really hope people get to the end of this, because for me it's been amazing. And yeah, let's see where this goes, where it takes us. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you.